All right. So welcome everyone to another Jazz Matters podcast. Our special guest is the great Tyrone Jackson. Pianist, composer, arranger, everything. You know, it's hard to even put a label on him. So I say the great. So that knows that's why. That's why. And of course we got Vaughn Coulter here, Jazz Beats Radio and Soulscapes and all that stuff. You got more titles, Vaughn, than I can remember, really. You got more things going on than I can even say. But we're here again at the Jazz Matters podcast. And what we want to do before we get in there, we want to talk about a little bit about where you can get more information on Jazz Matters. Jazz Matters is a 501c3 organization, which is pretty much dedicated to preserving the heritage and culture of jazz in the city. And as we go, we can, you can always check in at yesjazzmatters.org, and that way you can pretty much pick up on everything that we're about, our special events, which we're all having our summer concert series. This year is a little different because of the pandemic. So we normally start in June, just after Atlanta Jazz Festival. But because of the pandemic, we had to push things back a little bit, just like a lot of other people. So this year we'll only have one concert for this series, and it'll be on August 20th. That's at the Wren's Nest. So it's an outdoor event. Ticket sales, you can go to Yes Jazz Matters. They're also on Eventbrite. And go ahead and grab your tables and come out there and enjoy the fun, have some fun. I know it may be a little warm usually in August. So definitely dress appropriate. A couple of times we've had people a little bit overdressed and they kind of paid the price, the heat price that is. But definitely go there. Also go there and visit Jazz Matters store where we sell apparel and different items in there. You can, like I said, you can reach us at yesjazzmatters.org. So what we're gonna do now is dive right into all of Tyrone's background, all his business, and get it out there in the street. So I hope he ain't gonna hold back on us and stuff, and we'll just bleep out all the stuff he don't want to say. All right, cool. And all the people that owe him money, don't worry about it. He'll checks in the mail. So Tyrone, man, for all the people here that want to know you and in the area, because I know you've been here since around Katrina, right?
Actually, a little bit before Katrina. So I've been here since 99, close to 2000. Yeah. So Katrina happened around 2005, and I was fortunate to be out of there before. But all my family members had damage and people that I knew, so it was a rough time. And they're still not totally back. But yeah, I've been in Atlanta since like 99, summer 99.
Right, and of course we're talking about the Hurricane Katrina that happened in 2005, and of course Tyrone is from New Orleans, and being in New Orleans as a kid, where did you get your influences from to even get into the music? I know the music is almost it's almost in everybody's DNA down there that's born there, but we want to know your story. Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you should ask that question. I started off, my mom wanted me and my two brothers to take piano lessons, and we're real close in age. My older brother is only 13 months older than I am, and my younger brother is 3 years younger. So we're competitive in everything. And my mom said she wanted us to take piano lessons because she regretted it first, and she wanted to make us more rounded as a human being, So that went along with swimming lessons or whatever else it took to make us well-rounded or this Renaissance type of person. I didn't particularly think that I had a love for music. I did have a love for trying to figure things out. But the competitive nature that I had, my neighborhood teacher used to give out stickers for each song that you accomplish or get past. And so I just wanted to get more stickers than my brothers did. So my mom would set a timer at the piano for us to practice every day, a half an hour. I'd make sure I would go last so I could set the timer to like 40 minutes. And eventually I started getting good enough where I didn't set the timer. But a pivotal part of my music upbringing or education, you will, was when we did our first recital. And my teacher would like put the best people last. So me and my older brother, we were really good, but we were sort of toward the end, but not to the end. My younger brother was in the middle. And the last girl who played Furry Elise. You guys heard it before. That song right there, right? And so when I heard it, I said, what is that song? I want to play that song. You know, I've been playing baby pieces up to then, you know, it's Bastion method or whatever, not real pieces. And my teacher said, that's a couple of grade levels past where you are. And I said, really? So not taking that for no for an answer, I said, well, is there sheet music for it? She's like, yeah. So I told my mom, Worldlines was the big music store. I said, Mom, can we go to Worldlines and I get this sheet music for Furry Elise by Beethoven? She's like, sure. And I learned the song in 2 weeks, and my teacher's like, how did you do that? I said, well, I like the song, you know. And I wanted to be last one day. I wanted to be the best player in the recital. And it happened. You know, I started picking up stuff. I had this insatiable curiosity of how music was put together. And so me and my brothers had gotten good, and our neighborhood teacher said, hey, you guys outgrew me, so it's time for y'all to move on. So we started taking lessons from Moses Hogan, who was a great pianist. And his niche was writing spirituals for choir music, which is right now is this across the board standard repertoire for choirs right now. So he made his living off of that. I remember when he was doing it too. It was just like a side thing that he just decided to do, and he made more money off of that, even though he was like a classically trained pianist and had won competitions and stuff. So anyway, needless to say, I got into NOCA, which is New Orleans Center of Creative Arts, and it was made famous because most of the top jazz guys that got signed to record deals went there. Wynton, Terrence Blanchard, Ken Jordan, Marlon Jordan, Nicholas Payton, Harry Connick Jr., all those guys went to NOCA, which is like you go to your regular school, high school for half of the day, then you go to NOCA for the next. And you could deal with theory and all that kind of stuff. So I made it into NOCA, but I was a classical pianist. Well, I was walking past the jazz guys, and I was here. I would just walk by there because it was so cool to hear the music, even though I didn't know anything about it. And then Clyde Kerr, who was the director at the time, said, Jackson, don't you play piano? I said, yeah. He's like, our regular pianist is not here. Can you come in and play? So I said, okay. So he said, we're going to play F blues. So I said, what's that? He said, well, the changes are easy. It's an F7. I said, what's an F7 chord? And so even though I took classical music and I played with chords, we never learned chords. You know, you just play what was on the sheet music. Of course. And so they said, play F7 chord, and I played this, which is an F major 7 chord. And they said, no. I said, okay, was it this? And I played an F minor 7 chord, and it's like, no. I said, well, what is it then? It's like, it's a major triad with a minor 7, like that. And I said, oh, okay. And then he said, but no jazz musician would ever play that chord like that. So I was like, well, why did you teach it to me like that, you know? He says, no, you would play it like this. I was like, oh, that's cool. You know, so I said, well, where's the sheet music for this? He's like, there's no sheet music for this. You just have to memorize and learn it, and you can come up with your own voices. I said, come up with my own voices? What is this, you know? But it was incredibly cool that would happen. It planted a seed in my life. But then when I went to University of New Orleans, Ellis Marcellus had came back to there and had the Coca-Cola Endowment Chair for the Arts and for Jazz Studies, and created his own program at UNO. And I was like, I got to go there. I was going to go to Dillard University, where my teacher, Moses Hogan, was. But the opportunity to learn jazz from Ellis Marsalis was like, I got to get in. So I got there, was able to get in and study with Ellis. And the rest is basically history. After that, I just got the bug, started learning. And one thing about Ellis is he's going to afford you every opportunity to get good. Even like any gigs that people would call at the university to get him to play, he would say, okay, I'm going to pass on that gig, but I would like for you to employ my students. So he said, I'll get you some students to play. That's the way. You can use my name on it, say Ellis Marsalis Presents, but I want my students to play. Because a $100 gig wouldn't benefit Ellis Marsalis. But we all know people who take every gig, professors that take every gig that's offered, whatever. But he gave it to his students. So he gave us opportunities. I had the opportunity to go to Europe with the All-Star Jazz Band. And we were on the road with George Cable's an incredible piano player. And I forget the trumpet, Jimmy Owens, trumpet player. And just tour out there in Europe. It was great and a great opportunity. Then I moved to Atlanta after playing some gigs in New Orleans and doing well and being mentored by this great saxophone player named Greg Dawson. You know, you always have to have a mentor. School can't do everything for you. And Edwin, you know this. I mean, it's the school of hard knocks. You got to get out there and play. And younger people,
you got to get in them streets.
You got to.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, younger people today want to play with each other, but there's some things that you learn from older cats or playing with older cats that you would never learn in the book or you would never learn in the classroom. And so as an educator right now, I'll tell my kids, this is not the classroom. This is just four walls. The classroom is out there. You go to these jam sessions, you go play on these gigs, and some of these kids, and Vaughn, I don't know if you know, but these kids want high money, high dollar for these gigs that they play. And I'm like, you need to be paying these people for gigs. There's no way you can demand $200 for a gig and you don't know any tunes. You know, my first gig.
That's this generation.
Yeah. I paid $8 for my first gig, and I inherited my family's station wagon. That bad boy took $12 just to get to the gig. So I was at a deficit already, you know. But these kids want to play with younger kids, and I'm like, no, you got to play with the older guys. Because one of the best lessons I got was from an older guy who played saxophone, and his name was the same as mine. His name was Tyrone. So they called me schoolboy. They didn't even call me my first name. But the best advice I got was from him, and I was studying with Ellis Marsalis, who, like, everybody he touched turned to gold, you know. So, yeah. So then, came to Atlanta. I got my master's at Georgia State. And then I started working at Kennesaw State University as a professor, where I am now. And right now, I'm working on my PhD. I'm my second semester at a PhD in music ed, philosophy. Yeah, man, so that's the short story of the education process from how I got from New Orleans to here to Atlanta.
Yeah, it's funny that some of the things you were saying, I was like having a flashback. But the thing is, especially when you had to go and leave, you know, who you thought was probably one of the best piano teachers you could have.
Yeah.
Then go to find out that there's a guy with alcohol on his breath that can show you more things in about 3 minutes than you could learn in 3 years.
I promise you, that was the best. Yeah, it was.
That's the way it was with me also. It's just strange, man. It's like, wow, you think you got it, you know, especially when you know that you can play it from the paper. You know,
right.
You feel that you are at a certain place, and then you find out that the least you play, is the best you can play.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But man, but getting back to you know, while you were in school and you were being referred, you know, by your director, that's kind of what the same thing that Alvin Baptiste down there.
Yes.
To get his students to play gigs, he would turn down.
Right.
And he put you with pretty much anybody out there. You know, so a lot of people actually stayed out there because of him, like Randy Jackson, for instance. Randy, Alvin put him with Billy Cobham back in the day.
Right.
And he put a couple other guys, Charlie Singleton, cameo.
Right.
Alvin put him out there, you know. So that's a tradition down there. And it's a great thing, especially coming from an older player. which is technically a mentor all around, that just puts you indoors, that opens doors for you, you know, and it's up to the player to understand, you know, it's one thing to, you know, when somebody says, go play with this person, and like you said, you know, he wasn't going to play for $100 gig, it wouldn't have meant that. But for you, it was opening doors to where you are now. And you have to keep following those and give that respect to the elder players that have already been there, done that, and, you know, coming around again. But
Edwin, let me show you how on time you are. My mentor, which was Greg Dawson, the saxophone player, studied with Alvin Baptiste at Southern, right?
Yeah.
So he told me, I should have known this when he told me this story, what would happen to me. But he said their first improv class, he gave them the real book. Remember the illegal real book?
Yeah, I remember the illegal.
Yeah. So he was like, this is your textbook. He's like, learn all the songs in this. He said, the final exam, I'm going to open up the book and call out a tune. You got to play it.
Right.
So I was like, wow. So I get on a gig with Greg, my first time playing with him. And we play a funky version of All Blues, right? So Greg would play two sax at one time sometimes. And he gets into this riff to play for the drummer to play over, right? To take a solo over. So he's playing a riff, and I was like, man, that's cool, right? So I'm a young kid. They call me schoolboy, like I said. And the bass player leans over to me and says, you got to learn that lick. I was like, what do you mean I got to learn the lick? He's like, you got to learn it or he won't get off the song. I'm like, what are you talking about? So here comes the lick, come back, like that, and the drummer takes a solo. And the bass player plays it. I was like, wow, that's incredible. And so again, first pass, I'm like, missed the rest of it.
Right.
Second pass comes around, miss it. Third pass, fifth pass, the drummer's like, dude, get it. My arms are getting tired, right? Seventh pass, nothing. 12th pass, I'm getting closer, but it's not there. The bass player starts yelling out notes to me, G natural. It took me 27 choruses, no lie, to pick up this one lick. And Greg Dawson's resolve was so stringent that he would not move until I got the note verbatim, got the lick verbatim. When I finally got it, the drummer was like so mad at me. He's like, schoolboy, you got to get better at playing by ear. You got to, this is not no books right here. And every gig was like that until my ear, I didn't even know my ear had gotten better. I was able to pick up stuff.
Right.
And so he's got that from Alvin Baptiste. And so just what you said was like Alvin Baptiste is a part of me now via Greg Dawson. Is that crazy or what?
That is like, you say I can agree with that. I understand it. And that's why I mentioned him, because I know what he had done for a lot of players down there.
Right.
And even the players, there was one from around your area. Actually, he lived from Jeanneret, Louisiana. But he also did a few things with Kellis. Michael Lockett.
Right.
But he was blind.
Right.
And by the time he came up and I met him, first thing he says, let's play giant steps. And I'm like, why? You know what I'm saying? And so what we ended up doing was playing giant steps, but we were playing it in every key.
My goodness.
And so, yeah, really. And the thing was, I was like, Mike, who taught you that? He says, no, I just learned that from Baptiste, told me I have to do that. And I was like, oh my goodness, yeah. I said, that's a great thing, you know.
Right.
But he was a cool guy, you know. I think he's still down there in the area. But also, now getting back to your Kennesaw, where you teaching.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, you're over the jazz band now?
Well, I'm not. I'm over, how can I say this? Sam Skelton is over the jazz department, and a great saxophone player, great educator. So he's over the big band one, and he's over the whole entire program. And we have like a robust saxophone section. If you know anything about Sam Skelton.
Oh yeah, I know Sam Skelton.
Yeah, he's incredible woodwind all the way around. He plays any of those woodwinds like it's his first instrument, you know. And then there's Trey Wright, who's also full-time, and he's over the combo section, the jazz combos, in which I teach 2 jazz combos. And then I'm the next full-time employee of Kennesaw State Music Department. But I also teach 3 improv classes. I teach a class on history of the blues. I teach 2 combos. I teach applied jazz piano, of course, and I teach a group piano class for non-piano majors, but that are jazz majors. And then the last class I teach, what am I missing? Oh, Aural Skills class. So, which is traditionally a classically a classical class in nature. So, but I teach Aural Skills 3 and 4, which is really cool to teach that class from my perspective, which is really good for the classical musicians to get a taste of that, you know.
Now you also I see that you have been working with Cole, Ernest Cole. He called himself EC.
EC3, yeah.
And you guys are doing production work for different artists now.
Yes.
See, and it's Ernest. I know when he was around here, I think he left went somewhere either in Baltimore or Maryland.
Yeah,
area.
Baltimore, D.C. area.
Yeah.
He's there now. Yeah.
So he's as a matter of fact, I was supposed to have him on this podcast, and which I will get around to. And I think he's got some things of his own also going on.
Yeah. I know he would love to do this because, I mean, the Jazz Matters, man, you guys do such a great job. I remember doing a concert, I think it was with Chandra Corelli at the Wren's Nest.
Okay.
And it was fantastic with the Jazz Matters series. So, man, kudos to you guys, y'all keeping it together and keeping jazz alive. With EC, it was funny because I met him here in Atlanta at a jam session, and in which he never played at the jam session. He was there.
Well, he was notorious for that. He'll be there, right. But he wouldn't necessarily play. As a matter of fact, I remember when I was down at Dante's playing, and I said, "Do you want to play?" No, I'm just listening.
Right.
Well, see, I played with him years before that. I think he had just gotten out of the Navy or something. But he was a young guy. He was, a drummer and everything. He let me know that he went out to Las Vegas and worked a while. Finished going, doing some stuff. I helped him with him at playing with him. So I asked him about that, and he says, no, but he used to come down all the time. I said, "Goodness, what are you going to do, man? What are you going to create your own stuff?" And he says, "Well, actually, I'm thinking about it." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, just let me know, man. Anything I can do for you?"
Right.
He says, "Cool." So he comes down one night, then he decides he wants to sit in. I said, "This is the first." You know what I'm saying? So he sets it in the place and everything. He says, I wanted to see what I could use with the band you have here. He said, "I want you to come and do my first CD project." I said, "Okay, cool." And he said, "But I'm going to have a lot of other people also." I said, "No problem, man. Just let me know what's happening." So I did that, and that kind of seemed like he catapulted me there.
Right.
So it did, because a friend of mine that lived in D.C. Called me and said, "Man, I seen you on this guy's CD. Have you had?" I said, "Yeah." And he called the name and everything. I said, "Yeah, Ernest." I said, "Yeah, he's a great musician. He got his head." At the time, he was, really into a Latin type of thing.
Yeah.
And that a lot of that influence pretty much came from another drummer that was here in town, named Jim Jackson.
Oh yeah.
Ernest used to actually take lessons from him.
Yeah.
A long time ago. But anyway, getting back to you.
Yeah, so I started working with, he called me for a gig shortly after that jam session, and Craig Shaw was on the jam session as well. So, but he ended up using this guy, Tommy Sauter. I don't know where he had met Tommy. And so he called us for this gig, and it was at a school. It was early in the morning. So first of all, for jazz musicians, early in the morning, that's already early. He wanted us there for, I think we performed at 8. He wanted us there at like 7:15. So we get there, he's already set up, drums, everything. And I'm there early. I'm there, it's like 7 o'clock, and he's already got his drums set up. And he's warming up, you know, doing the wrist stuff and stuff like that. And me and Tommy actually walking at the same time. He says, "Great guys, I'm glad to see y'all here." He said, "Good, let's play a song to warm up and see what we're gonna play for the show." I was like, "Okay." So he says, "Let's do a rhythm changes. Y'all cool with the rhythm changes?" We're like, "Yeah." He goes, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm like, "Oh, nah, I play it because I'm accomplished enough to play it. But who wants to play at that blazing speed at 7:15 in the morning, right?" So after I'm finished with it, he says, "All right, now I know you guys can play. Let's play this song, this, whatever." And I was like, "Man, did he just give us a test?" But, you know, I appreciate it because he was burning, he was killing. And I was like, okay. But we became fast friends after that. And he started producing. Like you say, he just took that over. He always had a good ear of what he wanted to hear. And we just started working together and did some projects. And we did a project on Nikki Harris, which is Gene Harris's daughter. But she's also the vocalist / dancer that used to work with Madonna. You see Madonna with 2 dancers, a white lady and a black lady. She's the black lady, the sister. Mm-hmm. But she's incredible. She's an incredible vocalist. And we produced that record. I think it's called Time and Rhyme. And it was off the charts, really good. And then next thing you know, we started working with some other artists and producing some other artists. And it came together, and the name of the company is SVU Entertainment. And we've been putting out some stuff with artists. So it's been really good to put that hat on as a musician. And Edwin, you know, I mean, you got a studio too. I mean, you got to constantly put that other hat on, a producer. And sometimes it's hard to put producer and musician on at the same time, you know. Sometimes you have to just be the producer and let somebody else record the piano part or the bass part, you know. But there's times where you have to do it, but it's a different lens that you have to look at music in as a producer and as a recording engineer and as a mixer. And if you have to master it too, it's another level of hats that you have to put on.
You lose a lot of sleep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
You know, you lose a lot of sleep. Yeah, man. But Vaughn, I want you to jump in here with get into this conversation.
Yeah, I
know you listen to everything.
Waiting patiently.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, Tyrone, it's a pleasure to have you here with us this afternoon, man.
Thanks,
and you know what? I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Edwin, is Tyrone the first musician we've interviewed birthplace from New Orleans?
Birthplace? I think so.
Okay. This is a special moment. This is a special moment for me because I got some questions, right? And I'm trying not to burst them all out at one time.
Oh, go ahead, bust it, man.
Right, come on.
So here's what I'm looking at. How many schools of thought have developed out of New Orleans? Because there are so many different levels to that of the art form coming out of New Orleans. I mean, you know, you got Christian Scott playing one style. You've got Terrence Blanchard and Donald Harrison playing a couple of other different styles. You got the Wynton Marsalises, and I mean, you got the Marsalis family, and then you know, I'm trying to see, you know, because where does it all fit into the art form? Because, you know, it's kind of confusing because as a broadcaster and a lover of the music and somebody who has tried to study the history of it, where does it all fall into place?
Well, here's the thing. New Orleans, Louisiana is in the South, but it's not classical South where you would think. So in a nutshell, the first thing is the Louisiana Purchase we got that from the French. So the French influence, even the Napoleonic Code is still in the laws today. So you can practice law anywhere else in the United States, but you have to go, if you practice law in Louisiana, there's different codes that's different from everywhere else. So you have to take a test. Even if you pass the bar in Georgia, you got to take a different test in Louisiana to practice law. It's the same thing if you pass the bar in Louisiana, if you go anywhere outside Louisiana, you have to take another test in order to operate. That's because there's still Napoleonic Code. Now that's important because when people of color was in the South and you were enslaved or whatever, the mixing with a white person you would be considered a bastard or illegal. You wouldn't be able to own property. You'd still be considered black. That rule of one black blood makes you black, right? So in the South, you couldn't own property, you couldn't vote, you couldn't do anything. However, French law said that you are French, of French descent if you are mixed with a French person. So that Creole term, the race, well, I don't want to say race, but the mixture of people called Creoles came from the mixture of black slaves and French people, and automatically their kids were born free. And so you had a lot of Creole people who were able to own property, pass along property, have businesses, and not be bound by the same laws that other black people did in the South. In addition to that, Congo Square was the only area in the South where they allowed drums, because they outlawed African drumming because it was a form of communication. And they thought the slaves would have an uprising and all this kind of stuff. But in Congo Square, every Sunday they allowed them to come together and to drum. Now the biggest thing is New Orleans is a port city and it was French owned, but it also was key in the refining of sugar, right? So all the West Indies, all these other islands that had sugar plants and sugar factories, all commerce with New Orleans and were from French influences. Well, all these rhythms that they had in the West Indies, we got in New Orleans. And if you think about a second line street beat is, well, that's the same thing as a Jamaican reggae chant, a house song. But the problem is, New Orleans, we slow everything down. So ours go boom, 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 boom. So all that type of rhythms come from West Indies, from Africa, and we were allowed to cultivate those rhythms and cross rhythms where it was outlawed in other areas of the South. So that's part of our DNA in New Orleans. The other thing is that you couldn't be a specialist in New Orleans. We had jazz funerals, jazz funerals where you'd go marching down the street, right? And it's the reason why it's called a second line is because the first line is the musicians. And the second line of people that come join in the parade are the people that's in the street. That's why it's called a second line, There was no jazz funerals in any other places. So, this is in our DNA. You could play a jazz gig and still have to play When the Saints Go Marching In. You could play a classical gig and you still got to play When the Saints Go Marching In, right? So all those styles of music and the fusing of those styles is what New Orleans is all about, just like the Creole people and just like the Creole tomato, which means it's indigenous to New Orleans. Even the Cajuns came from Canada when they would not accept Queen England's rule. So they shipped them down to Louisiana. They were trappers and stuff like that, fur and stuff. Right. And they go bring down to Lafayette where there's no cold weather, but they still trapping. They trapping mink and muskrats and nutria-rats and all these things to make fur and coats. And that's how they would speak this broken French because it was an area of sanctity for them in Louisiana because it was French rule, So all that history becomes part of our gumbo, if you will. It's part of our culture. And so you couldn't be a specialist in New Orleans. You have to play blues, you have to play gospel music, you have to play all these different things. And that comes out in our playing. And also that slowing down the drums like zoom, back, 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 boom, scat. And for bass players, if y'all can feel like y'all are playing in quicksand with a New Orleans drummer, Right. But you have to stay home and let that feel go there. But that's how the history has shaped New Orleans and New Orleans musicians.
Now, did where did the clave come in at that time? Was it at the same time?
Yeah. So, the Latin tinge came in where everybody was experimenting with Latin music, but um, uh, you had all those influences from maybe Cuba, which is different from Brazilian jazz. So, there's a clave in
Yeah,
Brazilian
exactly.
music as well. But the Afro-Cuban influence is definitely part of it as well, But Cuba, Dominican Republic, in the Hispaniola area, all that's in the Gulf area is going to get into it, So it definitely is a gumbo, of course. But I'm glad that you know your history. That's good.
Well, it's in my DNA now, and it has
Okay.
been for the last 20 years. So
Right.
I've always sat back with this great curiosity about its development and the key players that put it out there. And it's just and crossing paths with Edwin Williams has given me this passion, and I have it
Right.
like no other. And he's an educator in his own right.
Yes.
So I've learned so much from what I've learned along the way in my studies, and Edwin has provided so much more to that. So I'm
Right.
blessed to be in his line of sight. And as much as I can
Yes.
learn about it, because I talk to Edwin all the time, and I've just gotten connected with a group of people that are currently in the development of a museum called the National African American Jazz Legacy Museum, and they're putting
Beautiful.
it together in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So, I'm trying to do the right thing with this group to be able to infuse as much correct history with where this music came from. And their theme is from the belly of the slave ship. That's how far they want to go back.
Right.
So if you
so it's important that I'm to have you here today. So I'm glad.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing about like you using giving up all the references of where culturally your rhythm and so forth come from, and
Right.
there's another rhythm that some people they call it second line, but it's from the Carolinas, and the rhythms there tend to mimic more the Jamaican style of music more so than the multiple styles that in New Orleans. Being from, like I said, we talked a few days ago, being from right there, saltwater baby, so to say, we get a chance, and both of us come from seaport towns.
Yes.
So there are always a lot of culture that comes through those places, and it shapes all the different music forms that you listen to. It's a valuable thing that I've found in my career to be able to adapt quickly to all forms. Because it's almost like okay, I've heard this, but it's a little different. But I'm pretty much I can get into this. You know what I'm saying?
If you ever go to Charleston, South Carolina, you can close your eyes and open up and swear you were in New Orleans.
Exactly.
It's that same kind of thing, just like you said. The Geechee Gullah traditions.
Yeah, the Geechee Gullah and all that.
Yeah, that's very similar to what's going on.
Very similar. Now, now as far as now, do you have any projects of your own? I know you did a CD about a year or so ago. What you got new on the books now?
So I'm working on, the last project I did, and maybe it was 3 years ago, was called FTMO. And I would love to give both of you guys a copy of it. I'll send you guys a copy, and I could, let you guys, your listeners, know where to get it from. But it's from the mind of Tyrone Jackson. The concept behind it was, and you guys know how the music business is, once you get to like some type of label, they want you to concentrate on a particular style or genre. And I said to myself, I've been doing that. I recorded 3 albums already before this one. And I said, I'm not going to pick a particular genre or style. I'm just going to, whatever comes out of my mind composition-wise, I'm going to put it on the album. And then I'll let the consumer decide, because that's where we are right now with music, is that the consumer is going to decide what they want. I say this is the age of singles, because, where are you going to buy a CD? Like, people don't have CD players anymore, right?
Right. Yeah.
So most of their music they listen to is online on crappy speakers or what have you, you know.
Right.
So the days of getting a record, even though records are coming back, people want to hear music all the time from any kind of device. And so subscription-based music is the way to go. So with that being said, what is the impetus to make a musician want to do a whole album anymore? I could release one song here, next couple of months I'll release another song for the consumer to get. But that's not what I want to do. But so when I did this song, I had the consumer in mind that, hey, this is my concept of who I am. I have all these different influences. I might play acoustic piano on one song. I might play the Rhodes on a song. I might play some keyboard stuff. You know, these are all factors that shaped who I am as a musician. So that album was incredible. I worked with some great vocalists on it, Kathleen Bertrand, Rhonda Thomas. I don't want to leave anybody out. Tony Hightower, and a couple of other great musicians as well. Melvin Jones was on it, Mace Hibbard, Sam Skelton, Craig Shaw, Chris Burrows. Who else? Russell Gunn played trumpet on a couple of cuts. Eric Alexander. So it was a great project. And Nicole Banks Long is a great vocalist. Me and EC produced her album, which was great, but she got on my album as well. And so I'm doing From the Mind of Part 2, which will be coming out later on this year. So I'm working on that, getting that together. So that was my whole impetus for that album, was to do, put together whatever style or fusion of swing, jazz, blues, everything into that one album. I'm going to do it again. But I've done an album called Melody in Nede, which is a jazz suite, has a narrator on it. And before that, I did an album called Another Voyage, put out by Hot Shoe Records. That was straight ahead, and that was really good. And then also had an album before that called Dedicated. So yeah, so this will be my 5th or 6th album coming up. Yeah, so that's what I'm working on now.
Are you working it through the production company with EC, or this is on your own?
This is on my own. The production company, well, EC, hopefully he'll be on this one. He does a lot of production now, and he's still playing drums. So hopefully he'll be on this project as a player, because there's some things that we just kind of hook up on and just natural, But he also helped master my last program. So his hands are in everything. So he went up and mastered. I needed somebody to master it because my ears were just tired of it, And as an engineer, you don't want to just do every part of the process. You need somebody with fresh ears on a project to listen to, And Edwin, I bounced things off of you too. I was like, hey man, come, would you check this out? Would you come do this? What would you, And I've come to your studio. So Vaughn, that's another thing, man. I met Edwin when I first came here. Edwin was working at this music store, Jackson Music. And he was doing everything, ordering stuff. He was affable. He came up to me and asked me what I needed, whatever. But he didn't stop there. I could have I can't remember what I think I needed a mic cable or something like that. But instead of just ringing me up, he struck up conversation. When I found he was a bass player and he found I was a keyboard player, he gave me his card. And so I contacted him. And I can't remember what our first gig was, Edwin. I can't remember at all.
Actually, what happened, I was working part-time.
Right.
And I gave you the card, but you came down to Dante at the Underground.
That's what it was.
And I happened to look up in the balcony. I saw you leaning over the balcony. And that's when I got you. I said, come on down and play, Oh,
that's right. That's right.
And that's pretty much, we met each other, of course, but then that's when we actually first played.
You're right.
You got on the piano and played everything. And we played some other things.
Right.
You were doing electric piano in between all that,
That's amazing that I've never asked you how you recognized that, how you knew I could play and that I wanted to play. Was it just because
I got my eye on you, man? I had my eye on you in the music store. I said, okay, I'm going to see him again.
Right.
And then there was, I think I told you about no, I told you about a private piano teacher that was over there in Riverdale. I said, go to her because she needs piano teacher.
Phyllis, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And,
that's right.
And you and I recommended you and Tony Taylor to do that.
Yeah.
You know? And so that was it. You know, that's been a good little while ago now.
Yeah, it has been.
You know,
I didn't have all this gray in my beard back then.
I didn't have all this gray either, you know. But that was cool. What about, let me get your opinion, pretty much, because I always do this, with the musicians that are out now that are, you know, what we hear on the radio, they are classified as jazz. Of course, a lot of it is, now the straight ahead jazz, we're not even getting to hear that from the young players.
No.
We only get to hear, I call it instrumental R&B, or most people call it fusion, or not fusion.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, contemporary.
Yes.
Or smooth jazz. You know, well, I want your opinion on what we're hearing now, you know, straight from you as a composer.
Well, you know, at first it was difficult because our music is based off the African tradition of storytelling and passing things down from generation to generation. So in one way, I think that our country has failed the music because they don't put a preeminence on our cultural contribution to the world. Comes from, all our music from America comes from the African American tradition mixed with the collision of European culture. I didn't say cooperation because it wasn't.
It was definitely a collision. But go ahead.
Yeah, it was a collision.
Right.
So all of this came together, but outside of, there's nothing else that came from America outside of this music. Maybe corn or something like that came from the Native Americans that was here. But classical music, nobody in Europe wants to hear an American musician play classical music because it was created there. But they want to hear us play jazz because jazz was created here in America. Now, so I say that America has failed us with not subsidizing our schools that have great jazz programs with it, which is our export to the world. But I started changing when I started to realize that my responsibility is to point students to this music. And I say that because the newer generation, they're playing some stuff that is technically really hard to play. YouTube has really helped them, kids develop at a faster rate than we were coming up. So their technical prowess on the instruments are incredible now. So when I have a student that wants to learn a Robert Glasper tune or a Corey Henry tune, that's when I know I got him, because I can say, hey, do you know where Robert Glasper got this from? He got this from this guy named Herbie Hancock. And Herbie Hancock got it from Miles Davis when he was learning. And then this person, Corey Henry, he got some stuff from Chick Corea. You know what Chick Corea is? And then I can go down the lineage and teach them about these, get them involved with it. And one of my former students, Edwin, I know you know him, Xavier Gordon, incredible piano player. He's in LA right now, but I was able to shape this kid's life. And I see him on all kinds of stuff. I saw him on the Jamie Foxx show, whatever, where he was playing with Jamie Foxx, and the one where he has to beat the computer generated thing. Whoever can beat the score of the guess the song. I can't think of the name of the show, but he was on that. So I was so proud that I had, and he's playing at a high level. So to pass this along to a younger kid who's going to in turn influence other people was just like, that is my role now, you know? So maybe there's no aspects of swing right now, but I think that it's gaining ground because of these phenomenal type of kids. So if we can affect people in our own area, then maybe we can affect things statewide and affect things countrywide and then globally. So I think that we have to take the minimalistic approach right now. I think we can't just take on this thing full stream and say, okay, everybody needs to learn about what you're not playing is real jazz. This is real jazz. I think at that point, we can't affect that. We have to affect what's in our own circle. And, you know, that's got to be the impetus for Jazz Matters as well. And then the Jazz Museum that you spoke of, Vaughn, is going to be instrumental in kids understanding what our cultural gift to the world is jazz and gospel and pop music. Without blues and all that stuff, we wouldn't have any music. We wouldn't have Elvis, right? We wouldn't have the Beatles. We wouldn't have the Beatles without the blues, right? Because they learned from the American GIs bringing in music over to England and Europe. That's how they learned about the blues. And in America, forgot all about the blues. And here comes the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all these guys re-educating America about the blues. That's
making all the money in the process.
That's some sad stuff, man. It's really sad. To say that Mick Jagger learned how to dance from James Brown, which looks nothing like James Brown, it's just, that's some sad stuff, man. Right. That we really don't know the history of our music in this country and assimilation of all this together. There's some, it's not all about just African Americans. Along the way, we've grabbed a bunch of people. White people have made contributions within the music, but we got to really deal with culturally where this music has come from, right? Latin people, a lot of people have come in because that's what jazz does.
Right, and you made a point about once we can't really just dump everything on everybody and say, okay, this is jazz, you're not doing jazz. And the Jazz Matters, that's kind of the approach we have to take, because we realize that, like you said, a lot of swing is not necessarily in demand. Right. There are a lot of young musicians that can benefit just to be around individuals that do.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So we kind of offer the platform for them to progress, and to show their talents and create their craft and just learn about the heritage of it, the history and so forth. But you're absolutely right when it came to the
I'm sure the boogie woogie pianists and the people like Art Tatum would listen to me play and say, he's not really dealing with anything. I mean, it's the evolution of the music. Yeah. But those guys were playing at such a high level. They
could still take something from you.
And
that would be kind of unique. In other words, they can come at it a different way, of course, but they'll come, it's coming from you. Inspired that.
Right.
So Vaughn, go on, jump in, because I can see it.
Yeah, I was, because I'm listening, and Tyrone, you're striking on some very interesting points, because, I was, Edwin and I had a conversation with him about there's a gentleman that did a dissertation about smooth jazz and where it places in the history of this music. And I try to, and in reading it, I became more and more, I found a deeper consciousness level to smooth jazz, more so just reading his dissertation on how these musicians came about and where it all started. And he connected it back when hard bop hit the scene. Influences from Horace Silver, what Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers were doing, what Donald Byrd added to it, Wes Montgomery, all of these legendary
Les McCann,
Les McCann and Eddie Harris and Stanley Turrentine. So he was connecting it to just the transition level from most of the musicians back in the 40s and the 30s, that was bebop, but that level of play was over the heads of the audiences that were listening to the music. They couldn't describe it. Hard bop pulled from the inner city of the ghettos Black folks was living in during those periods of the 1950s and 60s, and how they pulled more of a gospel sound into the music. So that brought an audience closer and understanding what the musicians were doing, And so, in dissertation, the guy was saying, one of the legendary songs that came out during that time period, that kind of said, this is what the future holds for jazz, was Ramsey Lewis's version of the In Crowd,
Right.
because he developed that call and response style of play that was present in the church.
Yes.
And so I kind of picked up on, how that music developed. And I kind of come to the conclusion that, yeah, smooth jazz kind of brings the audience closer to what the communicating aspect of the music that wasn't really present there during the bebop era, and so it was like really a return back to when jazz started in the 30s and the 20s. People enjoyed that stuff because they could dance to it, they could play to it. And so, but I guess the holier than thou jazz musicians who believe that, they feel as though they're still right about, oh, that's not jazz. There's 5 tenors to play in jazz. If you can play bebop, if you can play, swing and all this other stuff, that's the true element of how to play jazz. I'm like, jazz is jazz, brother. It is the tree. You cannot separate the branches from the tree. It all has
first
to
of
be.
all, yeah, these musicians, they don't buy records anyway. I mean, let's just be honest. Musicians
they
don't buy records. So you have to figure out real quick that you have to have your own identity. But let me just say this about smooth.
Yeah.
And hey, Vaughn, you're absolutely right. At the time when we think about music being a dance, where you dance to it, that makes it really relevant. The minute that you sit down and you want to analyze it, then it becomes more of a monument. It's not movement anymore. It's just a monument. It's just stagnant.
Absolutely.
That's true about classical music. Minuet and G. Minuet is a dance. Waltz in this is a dance. But when did they stop dancing to classical music? And it became, we're going to sit in this symphony hall and listen. But we're not going to even clap when we think it's good. You got to wait till the movement, the whole piece is finished with. You can't clap in the middle of it. Well, it becomes a monument now. It's stagnant. Nobody's dancing, and it gets weirder and weirder and evolves because now you got to determine what is the next best thing. Well, you got to think about the history of jazz. When you get out of the swing and the big band era, you get into bebop, the music is starting now to evolve so quickly. So after bebop, just like you said, you got hard bop, but you also had cool jazz that came out around the same time, right? And cool jazz was started going to West Coast. We have West Coast jazz, and you have all this Dave Brubeck stuff, and you have Take Five and all that kind of stuff, and you have Latin jazz and all these different things that spurn from. And now the music is going by quickly. In the 60s, you also have James Brown. And those guys are starting selling out and stuff. Then you get to the 70s, you got Sly and the Family Stone. Well, guess who's still alive? Miles Davis is still alive. Herbie Hancock is still alive. Freddie Hubbard is still alive. Donald Byrd is still alive.
Right.
It's evolve or die, right? But they also, part of that community, they're making it hip because, like, hey, this is my influence. This is where it comes from. I'm going to take it and make it into something. Miles Davis and Herbie Hancock started putting a crybaby on a clav because he wanted to sound like electric guitar because he saw those guys were stars, And now we got a clavinet is a funky instrument because of those guys trying to emulate other instruments. And don't talk about the advent of the electric bass and being able to now be heard or because amplifiers and stuff and play all these rhythms. And now then you have, all these other influences that come in. Music is just evolving so quickly, So like you said, there's many branches of this tree. There's bad smooth jazz and there's great smooth jazz. There's bad straight ahead jazz and there's good straight ahead jazz, There's bad classical music and there's good classical music. But we get these purists. Now guess what? Guess what is still doing well right now? Latin music, because you can go to Loca Luna and dance right now. I've done gigs right now. And there's people dancing to this music, and we're improvising. We're doing a lot of stuff. We play at a high level because they're still dancing. I don't see a lot of people going to an Afro-Cuban place just to sit down and listen. There's movement with that.
Right.
So, that's still alive today. And in Atlanta, I mean, you go to Loca Luna on I think it's a Wednesday night or a Thursday. I can't remember what day. And man, you're gonna see people dancing and some good-looking people and young people dance to it.
Right.
And they're not going to explain
Absolutely.
to you what's the difference between a 3/2 clave is, but they sure enjoying themselves, you know, and the musicians are enjoying themselves.
And,
So,
and you know what? That's a good thing to point on, that the fact that the difference is they kept their culture
right,
from the music, whereas in the Black community, they don't embrace the culture as much.
no,
So that's why, you know, the Latin bands and so forth will always have a good house. Always.
right,
But
right,
even though there are Latin players that play jazz, but they still put the culture of the Latino in the music.
right,
And the music, that is what, like you said, nobody's really going to just sit still and listen
no,
to the
no,
music. You know what I'm saying?
right,
Because it really, it's about, like how it is in Latin countries, you know, those countries are all about the music.
right,
And see, that is the everywhere you go in any Latin country, you're going to hear the music. You know,
right,
whereas in America, you know, you got a plethora of things that's thrown at you at one time, so you have to bid
right.
for it, or else you have to submit to whatever the airwaves is putting out there.
That's
But
what it is.
as far as the individual ethnic groups in America, you know what I'm saying? The Black culture embraces jazz. They just don't support it. See? And in other cultures, they actually support the music as well as embrace it. But Tyrone, we are running out of time really fast. And
Oh man,
man, we need to be able to talk about 2 or 3 more hours, because I know we could. But
anytime.
right. So where let everybody know where they can get you, what platforms are you using, so they can check you out, you know, even your music and so forth.
Sure. So you can go to my website, which is tyronejackson.com. And I'm on Spotify. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Apple Music as well. You can check me out on that and get my products via there. I also teach at Kennesaw State University, so you can check me out through Kennesaw School of Music webpage as well. If you're aspiring to learn and get a degree in jazz studies, we have a great jazz performance track, and we have some great teachers there. We have dealing with composition as well, and we have a great vocal program that just started up. So definitely on those platforms. And what else can you see me in? Just check your calendars. I play with a different cat almost every week sometimes. But yeah, TyroneJackson.com. You can even shoot me an email if you want to. TyroneJackson@TyroneJackson.com is my email address. And yes, look me up on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Pandora, and CD Baby as well. I think it's called Bandcamp or something now. But yeah.
Bandcamp, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So okay, Vaughn, let them know where everybody can get you.
Well, you can find me, the webpage to the radio station is Jazz Beats Radio, jazzbeatsradio.com. My show Soulscapes is on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, 12 noon to 4 p.m. And it's a mixture. And I try to put out there, I'm blending Lee Morgan's Ciora along with some Robert Glasper and,
Nice.
you know, like you say, Corey Henry. So I try to bridge the gap, you know, because to me, like I tell Edwin, jazz ain't nothing but soul. And that's what it all boils down. It literally is. So that'd be one spot. You can find me I'm on YouTube as well with Soulscapes on Jazz Beats Radio. And also you can find me with Instagram at Von Coulter. So, you know, I'm pretty much spread across the social media web universe as well. So, that's where you can find me.
Okay, and you can always get me at yesjazzmatters.org. And like I said, check us out, because on our calendar, we do have our summer series concert, the August 20th and it'll be at the Wren's Nest. So you can go online to Eventbrite for tickets and so forth. But Tyrone, it was great having you, man. And finally got you after chasing you for a couple of years. But the thing is, I know how busy you are, man.
Right.
But we'll get together again for sure.
So what I want to do is I'll give you guys a couple of CDs y'all can give out as a raffle for your listeners, and when you can give it out at a concert for door prize or something like that. And that way you guys could have something to give out, like, to some people.
Well, that's great. See, donation is one thing that we do. We embrace donation because it is the greatest nation on the planet. So we, like I said, you can go to yesjazzmatters.org and you can go to the donate page and you can donate. We prefer cash, but you know how that goes. Donate what you can, and just to keep everything going. So we're out on this is over, but Tyrone, man, we'll have you back again for sure.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right.
On.
Thank you, Tyrone.
Take it easy.
All right, y'all too. Bye.
All right.